Hello YouTube. Once again, this is your poster child for overactive brain disorder. Another Ivory Watchtower production. This one is called Crosstalk. So when last we left our intrepid adventure, I had done a video called What Can I Add? And I asked, what could I add to a human, to a set of beads, to a pencil, or to a Staros/pole? What could I add to any of these things to make them stop being what they are? My basic argument was quite simple. Merely adding to something can't cause it to change. It's what it is. I've received a couple of objections since then I'd like to address. First one is kind of quick, and so I'll just go through it really. When you add to a shape, the shape can change. Let's take a look. This is a triangle. Now we're going to add something to it. We are adding a rectangle at the bottom. Now we have the rectangle at the bottom. This shape is not really a triangle and it's not really a rectangle. It's actually now a pentagon. So you take the triangle, you add the rectangle to it, and you get the pentagon. So, what do I have to say about this? Well, in order for the shape to become all and only a pentagon, there was a subtraction. There must be. So, what was subtracted? Basically, the shared boundary between the two shapes. Basically, as long as when you add the rectangle to it, if you remove the boundary between there and let it all flow into one thing, well, yeah, of course it's going to be a pentagon. But, if the boundary remains, the triangle and the rectangle are still there. It's just that they're kind of connected, and you can see a pentagon kind of being derived from the two put together. In the same way, your basic Staros can, only ceases to be an upright stake, if the boundary between it and any cross piece that's attached to it is subtracted out of it. So, and another thing, I'm going to put a picture of something up there. You tell me what it is. Ooh, what do you call that? I don't know of anyone who calls that a telephone cross. They call it a telephone pole. It's designed to attach telephone wires to it. The fact that there's a cross piece there means more wires can be attached to it, but it doesn't stop being a pole just because of that. So, now let's deal with the second objection. And this one I'm going to take quite a bit longer on there because it's actually more important. Where is the cross found in Scripture? You're not going to see a word that directly translates to cross. All we actually have is the word Staros, which does not indicate two pieces of wood joined together at any angle, as God's kingdom rules continues to make abundantly clear. So, the idea is that with no indication that there was a second piece, we are actually adding to Scripture to assert one, and then, the only viable option by this argument is to believe the word as it is and its meaning, basically a single upright pole or stake. Now, this is a very good argument on its face. So, what do I do to counter this? Well, let's look at what the Scripture does say about the Staros. Well, we know it was used to execute people. I'm not going to put up the stuff on that because we basically all agree. But I'm going to point out three important points that I'll be using throughout this argument. One is that a Staros was capable of holding a person that was nailed to it. I put up a lot of verses about that, but, you get the point. The second one is that a Staros was capable of being carried by a person. Now, feel free to write down these things, look them up, but, we talk about, carrying the Staros or picking it up, whatever, and taking it with it. This was actually carried. We actually see it in the account when Jesus was killed that, you're expected to carry this to the place of execution. Also, a sign or title was placed on top of the stauros. Each of the Gospels records it, so I have no objection believing it's there. In one case, it doesn't really matter, but when we get to later on, I will be pointing something out about this. So in order for a stake to actually be used to kill somebody, how long does it need to be? Well, you need at least 6 feet to cover how tall people are. We have rather tall people nowadays, but which supposedly they weren't as tall back then. So that's why I'm saying at least 6 feet. Nowadays, we probably have to go up to 8 feet, but let's use 6 as a basic reference. Got another 2 to 3 feet for the arms positioned over the person's head, because if you're going to kill somebody on an upright stake, you got to put the arms over the head. So you have one to have a place to attach, and two just because leaving them on there means at the sides or whatever means you have to put the stake through their neck, and then you may as well just chop their head off or something like that. Then you also need another 1 to 2 feet to implant the stake in the ground steadily enough so that you can actually nail a body to it. It's only going to be nailed to one side, which is going to put pressure to tip it over. And so you need to have a decent amount in the ground and firmly in the ground so that it doesn't fall over. So we're talking something that's at least 10 feet long. Well, maybe 9 you can get away with, depending on if you're executing a short person. But somewhere around 10 feet long, maybe a little bit longer if necessary. So at the thickness that you need it to support a body, that's incredibly heavy and awkward to carry at least. May even be impossible, just weird. But even assuming this happens, let's move on. Then what happens once you get there? We've got this nice picture here of Roman soldiers attaching Jesus to the cross. Notice you've got the one up there at the top and the one under the bottom holding the body. This came from the March 1st, 2008 Watchtower, and shows, once the stauros arrives there, you just have to figure out something. How do you get it, upright? It's obviously not going to be carried that way, so you have to flip it into a hole and secure it. Well, if you could do it with a wide hole, pretty wide hole, get it in there and then fill it in again to support the body after nailing it. Or you could try to flip it into a narrow hole so you don't have to fill it in so much, but even still, you'd probably want to pound it in from the top for support. Either way, this is going to take quite a bit of time. And once it's implanted, then you actually have to attach the person on here. The way this picture shows it, the arms are tied. Then you're just lifted and held into position to nail the wrists, then you do the feet. Now, if you don't have the arms tied, that's going to basically require at least another soldier, probably 2, to catch the arms as they're flailing around, get them up into the position, held there, so it gets nailed in, and then after that, then you can deal with the feet. Now, we have a traditional cross here. What would be the comparisons? Well, you could start with a permanent vertical stauros, a permanent vertical pole that wasn't carried, that just sat there and waited for people to come. What they would do then, if you had that, is that you carry the transverse stauros, basically the horizontal beam. Carry that through the thing, let people know that you were being executed. The wrist could be nailed to the transverse beam from the ground. Just hold it down, nail it in there, and then you lift them into position. Very simple, very easy. And then you basically have a notch in the permanent one that holds the horizontal beam together, and it's all attached, ready to go. And you just take the horizontal one out when you're done, put the next one in, ready for your next criminal. The horizontal beam doesn't need to be as long then, because all it needs to do is cover your arm span, which is usually about the height of the person, give or take. So 6 feet, maybe go up to 8 just to be sure. So, but it's definitely smaller than the 10 feet we were talking about. And the fact that the arms are kept horizontal means the vertical beam doesn't have to be as tall too. You don't need those extra 2 to 3 feet for holding the arms above the head. So then once you've got, vertical and horizontal, that would be a T shape. You stick a sign over there, you get the traditional shape of the cross. So now here's our question. Which theory fits better? On one side, we have the single stake. On the other side, we have the traditional cross. With a single stake, what have we seen? You have to carry it, you have to implant it, and then you remove it each time it's used. Otherwise, you got a whole bunch of vertical stakes that are sitting there, and eventually somebody's going to decide, hey, why don't we just use those instead of having them carry it around? Traditional cross explains that because it's like, okay, well, we've got a few permanent implantations. Let people carry around the horizontal beam, and wow, there we go. We not only have people carrying the cross, we actually have it small enough where you can carry it relatively easy. It requires this flip and secure move every time it's used when you have the single stake. Put it into a hole, secure the hole, get it there, and then get everything done. With traditional cross, the vertical beam is always secure because you secure it once and you never have to touch it again. And you get a horizontal one that fits in a notch and is secured that way. With a single stake, you have a very awkward method of having to position and attach the body each time you want to do it. On a traditional cross, you've got the body secured at the ground level where you can control it, and then once it's done, you can put it into position with no muss, no fuss, as it were. The single stake, you now pretty much need ropes around the wrist to make sure that you don't waste excess soldiers' time. They can be off doing other things. The traditional cross, you can do it without the ropes. You throw the person down, you grab the one arm, nail it, grab the other arm, nail it, lift it up, there you go. All nice and easy. If the single stake theory is correct, I have 3 questions about it. 1. Why did Thomas ask to see the print of the nails, plural, in Jesus' hands instead of the nail, singular? 2. Why didn't Thomas ask to see the mark of the rope in addition to seeing the nails and feeling the wound in Jesus' side? And 3. Why did the Romans, namely the ones who executed Christ, translate the word as cross and not as pole? Surely the Romans knew what poles were, and if that's what they executed him on, they'd be able to tell us. So that's basically all I have for today. Thank you for watching, and until we meet again, enjoy.